hook up temporarily.
Well, I think those are things that you and that property owner and Mr. Hopkins can discuss after this meeting.
Okay.
So I think our direction to Mr. Hopkins is to continue to pursue those easements. Are you doing that on your own, or do you have people that help you get those?
No, I've been doing that on my own.
Well, I would think that would be one of your top priorities, is try to wrap up those easements at this point. I mean, at least in my opinion, and get this done. What is your other avenues? If you were looking to do a project like this and you couldn't get you would negotiate with the property owner possibly? How would you get the right of way for the sewer or what have you, and they didn't want to give it? I mean, what are your options? Would you go to court and try to take it? I mean, that's what I would like to know. What are your options?
I'm not a fan of condemnation. I think, as I explained before, I think it gets certain a bad name, a black eye, and especially for a situation like this, I'm sorry, I guess it would be concealed here because it does benefit more than just one or a couple people. I just hesitate to do it. I just think it's a bad idea. It makes us look like we're stealing people's property for use, and it just makes us look bad.
Even with fair market compensation for the easement?
Yes, sir. Well, look at what's happened with the new county projects for the Lee family, with the bike trail, at the end of the...
It's different though, because that's recreation. This is public health, in my opinion. I think it's a little bit different when you're dealing with sewer and water lines versus a bike trail or a walking trail. I think most of the public would agree with that as well. I would just say that ought to be your focus, is to try to get these easements done, and whatever negotiation you can do, I don't know if that's something we need to figure out as a board, like, what we do as far as, okay, they won't give it to us, it's a voluntary easement. Well, fair market value might be something we look at, or what have you, because Lakeview subdivision has many small lots. A lot of the lots do not have saline systems, or you can't put another septic system in there on those lots. So this is something that predecessor Mr. French even spoke about. So
not to interrupt.
No, I'm good. I'm done.
I think what I'm hearing from the Service Authority Board, I think there's consensus that we're asking you to make this a top priority. If you need Mr. Hall to help you, Mr. Popovich, let's get in there and try and get this wrapped up. And if you can report back to us in the next meeting, that'd be great.
Now, when it comes to it, if it looks like all freelance compensation, I guess I need to come back here and get your own approval. Is that correct?
Well, we need to know what the fair market easements are.
Okay. All right.
Hopkins, I've got a couple suggestions for you, though, after the meeting.
All right. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks for being there.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any other citizen comments? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to approval of the agenda. It's been requested to move item
I'm working on this for
7A to a closed session, so that would put a Section 10 closed session on the agenda after matters from the members of the Service Authority Board. Are there any other changes? If not, is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I move to approve the agenda as amended.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. I vote aye. Okay, next thing is the approval of the September 20th meeting minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the meeting's minutes.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor of adopting the September 20th, 2022 meeting minutes signify by saying aye. I vote aye. All right, next thing is the monthly financial report. Mr. Hopkins.
Okay. The board has met the executive packet. You've asked me to not spend a lot of time summarizing the stuff that you said you want to just read and ask questions. Very briefly, water sales are down, probably because of the area that we built this last month. The better than last year, and connections are open fairly well. Overall, including revenues, we're almost $120,000, almost 4% ahead of last year.
Board members, any questions? Not? The next thing is old business, executive director.
I've got a few updates to the report that's in the packet. We want to mention again, I went to the Virginia Marine Resources Commission meeting on September 27th to make sure that the permit got approved. That was a 7-hour drive for 5 minutes of a meeting that I attended. But it was worthwhile. I just want to make sure that I want to make sure the permit got approved, but it was correct to that federal funding that we're looking at. Under the DC local book bar, on page 2 of the report, we did the pre-board meeting for the sidewalk construction last Thursday. Under the Monica Indian Nation project on 3-5, we had I met with one of our crew leaders and two suppliers this morning regarding continuing the water main extension out there, open development, and also put sanitary sewer for them. Under 705 Shopping Center on page 4, Mr. Hall brought me a question statement at the last meeting on September 20th about the board requesting additional information for potential legal action. Mr. Popovich would answer this very well again, but considering that the private sewer system on private property and none of the issues today really are detrimental to the sewer authority, I don't know that the sewer authority will have a legal standing to be able to file a suit.
As I understand the facts, I don't believe that the authority would have standing to be in front of Judge Fraser. Then why do they keep calling us every time we do it?
Because it's sewer and authority. That's one reason.
Maybe we call the DEQ or DCR or somebody like that.
We're local. And we're local, right nearby, and we know them. The people that we've been talking to so many times now that they know who we are.
So what do you do when they call? When there's an overflow, what do you do?
The first thing I do is call Department of Health, and usually be Gary Gillett. We go out there and take a look at it. And it's the same property almost every time. And we meet with the lady, and she's a tenant, and we asked her to get the property owner out there and talk about it. And the property owner just, and the tenant, they continue being very upset, which I guess I would be too. And keep asking, what else can we do? Every time we contact the shopping center owners, they refuse to do anything until we get DEQ involved, until the health department threatens them with sanctions, and then they finally do it. And that's what happens every time.
So, is there cleanup involved? Is there...
It's not ours. It's private property.
Are they cleaning the water?
Yes, the shopping center typically goes through it, and well, they clear the sewer, and they do some cleanup on the property, but I mean, some of the times, some of the doors we've heard from the tenant, like this last time, she said the storm was so bad, the manhole was so bad, there was a river of sewage coming out of that manhole and flowing past and under her house. And that's when, Mr. Gill, again, we got DEQ again, and as a board, we contacted the shopping center owners, and they came back and fixed it.
Is the sewage ultimately ended up in a stream?
Yes. Yeah, one of the things that the property owner has engaged, it's either, I can't remember the name of the environmental firm, I know Preston Bryant works for them. Woods. Exactly. They are actually, they've been in the process of suing, and I've been feeding them with information they need from us as to why the situation exists as it is, and where they are in the lawsuit, I do not know.
The property owner is being overfilled on it.
Right.
Or do you guys have any other questions, or do we want to take a position on this? I guess, let me just put this up there. So, a couple months ago, a valve was left open at the water treatment plant, and some kind of, what was it, chemical?
Correct.
Overflowed, and there was some fish killed, and we got fined how much? Out pretty quick, right?
Yes.
Okay, and this has been going on for years?
Yeah.
This started back when I was with the
Right. So years, a known sewer overflow that's going into the streams. You see my point? I think this board should take a position and ask DEQ or whoever the correct state authority is to step in and have some enforcement action on this.
I think that's appropriate to ask a state agency to have an official letter from the chairman with the board's concurrence to have the state agency assist with the matter, because it's not under our purview. We don't have legal standing, it sounds like, but it's a problem that's affecting our citizens. And it's a sanitary sewer overflow. That's DEQ's ballpark, right?
There was a situation, I think it was 3 months ago, behind the Knights Inn, as it was nights, that, and I'm not sure how Mr. Gary found it, but there apparently, well, they've got a pump station there. It's been there for a long time, and apparently it broke down. It must have been years ago. They knew that they were keeping an eye on it, and according to Mr. Gill, and I saw pictures, there was an ocean of raw sewage down the woods behind that place, flowing down into a stream. And that was the first time I've ever seen DEQ to come out to the site and get directly involved and force them to do something. And going back to the one thing that would have solved the problem is the casino had come, because they were going to go down to the Central property. And that would have, my very first review comment on that plan would be to replace this entire private sanitary sewer system with a public system to the Board of Standards, and we're going to take it over. But unfortunately, it didn't go through.
All right, so, but you did answer the question that was asked about getting DEQ involved in this whole situation. You kind of talked about the Knights Inn and then this other problem is, what is DEQ getting involved in this, sending a letter to the state agency? Do you have a take on that?
Well, DEQ is the state agency, and the health department, and we have talked to DEQ on many occasions, and we just haven't gotten anywhere. Now, one of the other things that's happened, they've also, and I can't remember, I think it was the health department that contacted the conflict attorney, and we didn't get any help there.
I think what we're asking is what I thought you were saying. What we're asking is if you, Mr. Popovich, would draft a letter to DEQ from this board, I'll be happy to sign it as a chair, asking them to do some type of enforcement action on this property because it's affecting our citizens and our environment.
And in that letter, let's copy the Secretary of Natural Resources, Mr. Walker, Delegate Walker, and I guess Senator Peake, right?
All right, thank you. Is there anything else on your executive report, Mr. Hunt?
The last thing, on page 4, again, at the September 20th meeting, a question was raised, I think, by Mr. Wade, about on the quote-unquote water assistance program. I assume is you're talking about the low-income?
Yes.
Okay. That project is about to launch. We actually had what I thought was the final vendor agreement. That was, I got Mr. Popovich to review it for like the 3rd time after changes, and I was actually going to bring it to this meeting, and then there was, up until that time, the only people who had been participating with the Department of Social Services on this was the advisory committee. So we thought we were done, the committee was, and we opened it up to, Aqualaw had a meeting and invited other utilities to get involved, and we got a whole plethora of more comments. So we're still looking at getting a vendor agreement this week. I'm hoping to bring it, or this month, I'm hoping to bring it to the November meeting. It's about to launch. They're ready to launch. It's just we can't get there. We just get some final details that have to be taken up. Thank you.
Moving on, Assistant Director's report.
Okay, so report as listed. Just wanted to highlight the fact that we spoke last time concerning electronic utility billings, and we did notice our office manager, she reported that the postal costs for last month were reduced to about a half, which is positive. We still have folks participating. I understand that maybe there are a few that are not, that were, but it looks to me that that has directly affected the number of users on our website. You see down on the item number 2, we've jumped from 2,155 to 3,220 in a month's time for the users on the website. I believe that would be directly related. The only other highlight I have is last time we had extensive conversations concerning availability fees, and there was a directive to develop ordinance language necessary for consideration at the next available board meeting, and Executive Director Hopkins directed me to work on that. And so I have provided a draft ordinance language for the board to take a look at to direct us to move forward. I briefly spoke with Mr. Popovich about this, and we did discuss the definition of changing the availability fee to system development fee prior to me drafting this, and we also kind of briefly went over this just a few minutes before the board meeting. So if you have any questions, the next step, I guess, would be for us to, of course, officially send this to the county attorney for review, and then get this placed on the next agenda item for the Board of Supervisors with a ordinance number assigned. Am I correct?
And that would be at the second November meeting, because we have to public notice the public hearing at least twice, and the second one has to be at least 2 weeks before the public hearing. So there's no way to do it before the second meeting in September.
Do we have to take an action on it first?
Well, yes, sir. Yeah, well, I mean, you don't have to, but I mean, you all have been driving this. I think you all need to at least approve the resolution language.
How close does that fall to Thanksgiving?
Right at Thanksgiving.
It would be the 15th.
15.
Yeah, so that's the week before.
Okay.
I think we'll be good.
Board, you comfortable moving that forward?
Question, so is that, can we get the public notice in advance? What kind of notice do we have to provide for this board to review and approve the language to submit with our...
All we need, well, it would be best to do it, if you can do it today would be that would be the time to do it.
Well, if the language isn't complete. So we couldn't review it on a November board meeting, get everything working, and then we'll give our recommendation to the Board of Supervisors in the November board meeting. If they don't have the recommendation from us prior to that, because we don't like the wording or something, then it can be slipped to the next meeting.
You can do that. It's just that if you do that, we can't do the second meeting in November.
Right.
Okay.
Does that, it prevents us, the ACSA board, or to have it prevents the complication of having a joint board meeting, which is what I was trying to avoid. But if you don't mind having a joint board meeting, then we can do that as well.
I want the simplest thing that we can do, because I'd rather not have a joint meeting if we could avoid it and just take care of it during this meeting, and then, but this is all, I don't know the legal standard or what it is. I guess we'd have to, Mr. Popovich, could you maybe give us a little insight how we can work this out?
Well, yeah, I mean, I certainly think that you're making a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors on an amendment to their ordinance. So there really is only a recommendation from you all is really all that's needed by the Board of Supervisors. quite frankly, the board could probably make that change on its own, even if there was no recommendation.
So we could actually recommend this today. It still has to go through the county attorney. You still have to review it. It still has to go to the board of supervisors. And at that point, the board of supervisors will say, hey, they'll vote on it. This is the new change.
Right, if you recommend proceeding forward, we certainly can go ahead and start the public notice process, getting it, in proper format for the board meeting, the first board meeting of next month, because you have to have your first reading. And then at that time, if there is a concern by the authority of how it reads or looks, or you want to try and delay it a little bit, you can, make that recommendation, and then we can push it off. But in terms of trying to get the public notice out in sufficient amount of time for that first meeting in November, this would give us the best option in terms of moving forward.
I think that's fine, because it's still, there's nothing, we're not actually passing this. We're just giving a recommendation saying that, okay.
All right, is there a motion recommending these changes to the board of supervisors?
Mr. Chairman, after review of the red line appears consistent with our recommendations. I also like the fact that it shortens the ordinance somewhat significantly, and move that this board recommend the changes as defined, as well as let's call it the Scribner's entries as required.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. All right, thank you, Mr. Hall, Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Popovich. Next thing we'll move to new business. 335 Lakeview Drive Water Main Extension.
Okay, this came up actually in August. I'm not going to give you the whole history. It's in the report. But Mr. Weber wants his water meter relocated to. Right now, he's got a 1,700-foot long service line that, with the water meter located at the Lakeview Drive right-of-way, and he wants it moved to his property with the service authority taking over that 1,700 feet. And when he first called me about it, one of the things he said was he had just finished. The service line is like 40 years old, and he had just spent an inordinate amount of time and money trying to find and fix a water leak. And that told me right there, we don't want to take over this water service. So I gave him a lot of reasons as to why we almost certainly wouldn't do it. He came to the September 6th meeting that eventually being canceled, but he talked to me and Mr. Martin about it, and Mr. Martin asked me to go through and at least look at extending a public water main down the church driveway to the joint driveway, the intersection of the two driveways, and he asked me to put together a cost estimate, and you've got that in the staff report. It's very expensive, and I know that in the last at least couple of years, the board has been a real advocate of return on investment, and there's no return on investment here because there's no new customers. It's actually a negative return on investment because it's going to cost a fortune, and with the initial construction, and then of course we've got to maintain it, and it's more work for our meter readers.
Well, I appreciate the cost estimate, certainly, Mr. Hopkins, and that certainly put it to light to me. My general take on it, I like the idea of trying to help out our citizens, but the fact that it's off of the right-of-way, it only serves 3 buildings that I could tell. It was hard to tell that first house on the right of comes off of that same service line
No, it doesn't.
not.
There's two services on that.
Just 2 services.
Yeah.
And I just don't think I can justify the cost. Now, what the owner may want to do is approach his neighbor about connecting into the line directly perpendicular to him. It's the shortest path, it looks like, to where the water line is in the road, and he'd have to have an easement from his neighbor in order to do that. So that'd be my suggestion, but it's a private matter, and that'd be a new connection.
Yes.
But I'm sorry he's in this predicament, but I don't see a public need here.
Oh, I agree, and the biggest thing to me is setting the precedent, because we've got well over 100 customers with long service lines like this, you do this with one guy, and you'll be hearing about this at every meeting. Mount Sinai Baptist Church has been after me for the last 3 months to move their meter and about 400 feet to their property off of Elan Road. And I just, the Dillard Road Mansion, their service line is a half-mile long. I guarantee you that they would be in here at the very next meeting.
All right, is there anyone interested in this? All right, next item is miscellaneous matters.
Just two. We hired 2 new experienced utility mechanics, which is a real boon for us. John Martin and Draper Lee. We got them both from Virginia Siteworks. They've got a lot of utility construction experience. And you can see we've got a lot of reasons for why hiring these people is going to be a big benefit to the Service Authority. One that I left off, and Mr. Hall reminded me just before the meeting, we also hired a fellow to work, a guy by the name of Tyler Hodnett, who is going to be a utility worker, meter reader out of the water office, which, as it turns out, we're glad he came on, because I just found out earlier today that we may be losing one of our utility meter readers. We're going to have a meeting with him again tomorrow at 10 o'clock to find out why he's leaving and see if we can't get him to change his mind. So we've got 3 new hires coming on, that all of whom are going to be, should be a big help to the Service Authority. And again, at the 9/20 Service Authority meeting, there was a question about the Service Authority Master Plan that was brought up about 6 months ago. And that's in the report is where I am on this. It's taken me quite a while to, I've never done one of these things before, even in all my years of an engineer. It took me quite a while to find anybody who has done something like this, and Mr. Perro told me just before this meeting that I can get another one from Tom Four at the town of Alta Vista, so I'll call him this afternoon.
Any questions? All right, next thing on the agenda is citizen comment. Seeing and hearing none, matters from the members of the Service Authority Board. Mr. Wade?
None.
Excuse me, do you want to go into the closed session first?
No.
Oh, okay.
Do that last. Wood? There? Q? I have nothing. All right. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
Language.
Language?
I believe that Mr. Perro's motion would be that he moves to enter into closed session pursuant to Section 2.23711A3 to discuss the acquisition of real property for a public purpose where discussion in open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position of the authority regarding the Mays Family Trust property.
And so I move.
If you could remember that, I'd be like...
All in favor? Aye. Aye. All right, boys in closed session. made that?
I made it.
Oh, you made it good.
Oh, wait, I thought, I made the one going in, sorry. I guess
I'll
I
make
made
this
that
one.
too.
Yeah, I'll make this
Oh,
one.
thanks.
Well, now you made, now we gotta go through and back and forth a vote.
Very good. All right, moving back on the agenda to the May, the MAP track?
May.
May.
track.
Okay, the agenda says MAP.
You go, Tom.
No, you look at it, it says MAP.
It's a typo.
All right. So, my understanding is that this property is available for purchase, correct? There is an easement to it. So, I would make a motion that we proceed with purchasing the property. We move $30,000 from our reserves and authorize Mr. Hopkins to sign the necessary paperwork for purchase. Any discussion on that?
We need to approve the contract as presented, correct?
And approve the contract as presented. Good discussion. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I vote aye.
Thank you very much.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks for your forbearance there, John. Yes.
How quick you take it.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right, I'll get with you on this letter to DEQ and also on setting up a closing. Well, I guess you're gonna do the title search first, though.
Yeah.